listeners for the Storytellers Lounge, and today I'm with Felix Guzman. We're going to talk a little bit about his work, his plans for the future, and then he's going to read some poems. So, hi.
Hi, hello, my name is Felix Guzman. I'm a poet, community organizer, and advocate. My work centers around injustice, redemption, and also restoration. So for the time being, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself in that regard. I always talk about my experiences of being formerly incarcerated and formerly homeless so that people understand that there is grace to be offered and grace to be received as well for persons who find themselves in disadvantaged situations. So when I was 14, I was mugged at gunpoint, and I basically lost all sense of kind of hope at that time. And I found myself kind of lost for a very long time, trying to figure out, do I love life? Is life really kind of to be lived if someone can, kind of cause harm to you without just because they can? And for me, myself, that instance of harm created a downward spiral for myself, which saw me basically barely graduating high school. I went to Brooklyn Tech. It saw me not being able to kind of feel like I had a future after high school. And I traveled a bit after having cashed in a settlement that I had from an accident. And then a few years later, after traveling with bands and so forth and interning in the music industry, I got involved in a negative lifestyle of using and selling drugs because I couldn't afford to move out. And also at that point in time, I'm not sure if you noticed, but I have a facial difference. So there's some asymmetry to my face, but when I was younger, it was much more pronounced. So if you see, there's a scar on my left eye where it was cut and widened out. So my eye was much more narrow, and also there's more asymmetry. I had a rhinoplasty done, and I had some jaw work done. And because I couldn't find a job after high school, no one would hire me. Fast food, retail, waitering, hosting, nothing. I found myself selling drugs, and I found myself incarcerated. And it was through poetry that I managed to navigate safety for myself and also sobriety. So my second arrest date, July 12th, 2005 is my sobriety date. I wouldn't be here without poetry. And when I talk about redemption, I talk about that experience of being a pacifist in a hyper-violent space, and also after post-incarceration, trying to re-enter society and prove that I'm a capable, lovable, safe person to be around, and also that I have redeeming social value, because some people throw people away indefinitely. And society kind of tends to do that as well. They sensationalize or fetishize the experiences of incarceration. But for me, I give back however which way I can. I volunteer, and I sit on a city council commission on community reinvestment on Closure Rikers Island.
So you said poetry saved you. How did you become a poet?
8th grade, there was a girl that I liked. I wrote a poem. She friend-zoned me. And 8th grade also, I realized that at that point I looked much more abstract than I do now. And so when I got to high school, freshman year, 9th grade, that's when I got mugged. And then second semester, I discovered poetry. William Shakespeare and just the classics and everything, and I just fell in love with the fact that you could tell a whole story through poetry or prose, and that was just amazing for me because I had issues with focus and concentration and being able to read linear stories. So I fell in love with it, and over the years, I just kept getting deeper and deeper in love with it, and I'm looking to actually become a poetry therapist eventually. So that is my goal. I currently have 3 chapbooks that I DIY, kind of release myself. I started a little press / company called Poetry Saved My Life. It provides me an awakening, a spiritual awakening. It provides me life. Poetry provides me dignity. It is grace. It is my armor. It is my shield. It is my sword. It is my voice when I'm not able to speak.
Were you able to write in each of those facilities?
Yes, I was. Luckily, despite all the human justice, the human rights violations, they were still had access to writing utensils, writing instruments, and paper. Creative writing, the arts therapies are utilized in such spaces, and for me, that's more important than any kind of medication that might be given, because I feel that the arts are a conduit to healing. But poetry, like it literally changes me from this guy that looks down on the floor as he's walking down the street, this guy that doesn't make eye contact with people. It's sort of like a superpower for me. Success for me with all of that is also becoming required reading in the school system. Like, I don't care if I ever, I could be dead, broke, or whatever, but I would love, even for one semester or 1 year, to be required reading in the school system. That'd be so awesome.
Oh, that would be awesome for anybody.
Yes.
That's a very big goal.
Mm-hmm.
How about if you were teaching and you had a student who loved you and he read your poems all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
When he went to readings to read, he would read one of your poems.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be close enough, or would you have to?
Yes, that would be. Let me circle back. So I was born with a condition called hemifacial microsomia, which is the clinical name for the facial difference that I have. So as a result of kind of always feeling small because I look different, and always kind of being on the periphery of like beauty and normalcy in society, I kind of always felt like I never had a voice. But in school, instead of letting people bully me, I would make people laugh. Able to kind of move from lack of confidence and insecurity into power and potential and purpose. And that's what I would love to do, that in workshops for kids and adults. And so would I love for someone to do my poetry? Of course I would. I would be honored. I would be so honored. And if that's where it stops, and that's where it stops, and I'd be greatly thrilled with that, and I'd be totally accepting and honoring of that.
Wish I could hear your poems right now.
Called Savage Garden, Concrete Jungle. That was my first chapbook. That was actually a placeholder for my full-length collection, You Hold Space, You Have Value, You Are Loved. And there's some poems in there that meant the world to me at that time in 2020. And I'll go ahead and share some poems from there. There's another chapbook, Under the Influence, which lists my 5 poetry influences: Maya Angelou, Emily Bronte, William Shakespeare, Tupac Shakur, and Langston Hughes. And then there's also Scars. And those 2 last chapbooks are an evolution of the themes that were touched on in the first one, but a little bit more kind of, I don't want to say gritty or grim, but more confident. The first chapbook is more like how I am, maybe at the beginning of this interview, where it's more like demure and kind of like a little bit quiet, and then it's like, boom, I come alive. So this piece is called When Breathing is an Act of Resistance. It's just about, sometimes life just keeps throwing challenges at you, and you don't know what to do, and you feel hopeless. You feel like there's no reason to keep kind of understanding that there is a purpose or value for each new moment to come. And sometimes with that being said, prayers don't make sense. Being positive doesn't make sense. And breathing is the only thing that kind of keeps you going. And breathing is an act of resistance. So when breathing is an act of resistance. When breathing is an act of resistance. Breathing is an act of resistance. The life giver to revolutions coming and gone. The breath coursing through lungs promised not to another. The undertaker of nightmares and conduit for all achievements when all seems still understand. While we breathe, we move, gliding through the vacuum of space. Whether 10 toes planted firm or taking flight in dreams, when distance grows between truths being lived aloud, progress is made. As such, let us prepare. Let us prepare to fail, allow our fires to be reduced from overwhelming to diminishing to entirely overcome. We are gatekeepers. We are the love others seek for them. We are shipwrecks but still discoverable. We are poets with fortunes in our eyes more than ever fathomable. We are our truths lived aloud. We are the communities we want built for those to pitter-patter after us. We are the legacies we write to hold space for us in our absence. When all seems lost and gasping between cries, look for correction in the words of poets past and present to remind you how to breathe when you want to give up. Refuse to see yourself as nothing. At times to weather the storm, all to do is live. So live with the understanding that when all seems too dark to endure, breathing is an act of resistance.
This is the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2.